These movies share the exact same rating. So do these. And so do these. And somehow, all of these are judged by the exact same system. Because apparently, this and this are the same level of appropriate. Movie ratings are supposed to tell you what kind of experience you're about to have, a guide for parents to see if their children can handle the content. But the deeper you look at them, the less they actually make sense. Before movie ratings, movies had rules, strict ones. It was called the Hays Code, and it basically told filmmakers what they couldn't show. No explicit sex, or sex in general, crime couldn't look cool, and villains had to be punished. In this scene from Martin Scorsese's 2004 biopic about Howard Hughes, The Aviator, the main protagonist fights for clarification about the not always consistent content restrictions on films of that time. A time where some of our more talented stars wouldn't have a shot at the big screen in their current incarnation. It wasn't guidance, it was censorship. And Hollywood agreed to it for one reason. They were terrified the government would step in and regulate movies themselves, so they made their own system first. Firstly called the MPPDA, then the MPAA, now the MPA, the Motion Picture Association. But by the 1960s, culture changed. Movies got darker, more realistic, more willing to push boundaries. Films like Bonnie and Clyde and The Graduate were doing things the old system just couldn't handle, so eventually it collapsed. In 1968, the MPAA introduced a new idea: don't ban movies, label them. They came up with the rating systems of G, M, R, and X. Now, instead of saying you can't show this, they said you can show it, but here's what to expect. And that sounds like a great system until you realize it immediately had problems. The X rating wasn't even owned by the MPAA, wasn't copyrighted, so the adult film industry took it, and overnight, X-rated became synonymous, well, you know. So mainstream films avoided it completely, which already starts to shape what movies can and can't be. Then the 1980s hit, and things got messy again. You had movies like Temple of Doom and Gremlins, both rated PG. But audiences were like, yeah, this is not for kids. I personally disagree, but regardless, that's what happened. So the MPAA created a new rating, PG-13. In this time period, a few years before, they had also replaced the M rating, which was very confusing for audience, with the PG. But here's the weird part. The first movie to actually be rated PG-13 was Red Dawn, not the movies that caused the problem. They just came out a little too early. Now, Red Dawn is a movie that follows a group of American high school students in a small Colorado town after a surprise Soviet-led invasion of the United States. Red Dawn actually used to be known for having one of the highest body counts ever put to screen. But today, movies can casually wipe out entire planets and still end at PG-13. Which I agree with. Those movies should still be PG-13. Even some of those movies that wipe out entire planets like Star Wars should be still rated PG. But we'll get into that later. So right away, the system is already reacting, not leading. Now, this is where things really start to fall apart, because technically, there's no official rule book. But there are patterns, like the 1 F-bomb rule. Usually, 1, you can get a PG-13, sometimes 2. And that F word can never be used in a sexual manner. More than 1, you automatically get the R. Simple, right? Not even close. Take Beetlejuice. That movie drops an F-bomb and is rated PG. And that movie came out in 1988, after the introduction of the PG-13. Today, that alone would push it to a PG-13, which it did for its 2024 sequel. Now compare that to The King's Speech. That movie got an R rating almost entirely because of one scene, where the main character is swearing repeatedly during speech therapy. No violence, no sexual content, just language. Language that most 12-year-olds probably hear on a day-to-day basis in middle school. And then there's Bully, also pushed into R, largely because of tone and language, but got a PG-13 on appeal. Lots of our favorite movies over the years have gotten weird responses from the MPAA. Movies like The Fast and Furious and even the first cut of The Avengers were rated R. They got the PG-13 after brief edits and appeal. So it's not just consistent, it's consistent over time, which means the rules aren't really rules, they're interpretations. And this is the biggest pattern you'll notice. Violence gets a huge pass. You can have explosions, brutal fights, psychological torture, hell, even James Bond getting his little Bond smashed while we hear his love interest tortured in 2006 as Casino Royale still landed a PG-13. And The Dark Knight. That movie is intense, dark, borderline disturbing at times. Many thought at the time it should have been rated R. Still PG-13. But when it comes to sex, way stricter, way less tolerance. As a direct response to this, many PG-13 films, like those in the MCU and others, have become virtually sexless. Well, more than that, romance is almost completely gone. A stark contrast from earlier films in their franchises, particularly in movies like Transformers. Part of this is a cultural shift, but a lot of it is a direct response to how the MPAA rates films. So the systems reflect a very clear bias. Violence is more acceptable than intimacy. And this is where it gets even more interesting. Some PG, especially older films, actually feel more mature than PG-13 movies rated today. Because ratings don't measure tone, they measure content thresholds. Modern PG-13 movies, especially big franchises, are designed to be safe. Wide appeal, clean dialogue, nothing too risky. But then you have movies like The Batman and Fast 5, a movie I hope to make a video on one day, films that share the same rating as a movie like 2015's Ant-Man, which is odd. Because frankly, I don't think most franchise movies these days like Ant-Man, or others in the MCU, or others just anywhere, even need the PG-13 rating. To me, they fit firmly into PG territory. But it's become expected for every superhero film to be PG-13, so they are. So the films that feel like they push the limits, they feel darker, more grounded, more intense. But they stay just inside the technical boundaries while pushing tone as far as possible. So you get this weird effect. The movies that actually use PG-13 the best feel more mature than the ones designed to play it safe that probably should have a lower MPAA rating, making the PG-13 at times feel a little irrelevant. Studios don't just accept ratings, they negotiate them. They'll cut seconds from scenes, as in the scene where Agent Coulson gets stabbed by Loki in the Avengers, or the arms scene in the first Fast and Furious movie. They remove lines and resubmit films multiple times, all to land PG-13 instead of R, because PG-13 equals more money, like a lot more money. If you look at the current top 10 highest grossing films of all time, 7 of them are PG-13, and more than likely, 8 of them will be by the end of the year for Avengers Doomsday. So this rating gets more audience, more tickets sold, and bigger studios, they're better at playing the game. And this is where the system really starts to break in modern films, because now you have films that are technically R, but tonally PG-13. Take Deadpool and Wolverine. On paper, it's R-rated. Violence, language, all of it. But in spirit, it's fun, self-aware, basically a comedy. Feels closer to PG-13, just without the filter. You could call it a PG Spirit R. Now compare that to Seven, a film that shares its exact same rating. It's a completely different experience. That movie is bleak, heavy, genuinely disturbing. So at that point, what is the rating actually telling you? Because it's clearly not telling you how intense a movie feels, just whether it crossed certain lines. There are actually parent preview websites for content out there, but they have limits. One being Plugged In. That gives you the content in movies, but views everything through a Christian viewpoint. Not necessarily a bad thing for its target audience, but it does limit who actually reads the website. The best was, and I do mean was, Common Sense Media, but over the years it has added a paywall, and your film has to hit certain political criteria now that impacts its rating. But it's still a useful tool. And you could use the Dove Foundation, but well, your selection will be incredibly limited if you follow their advice. So, when you look at all this together, the MPAA isn't a clean, logical system. It's reactive, subjective, influenced by culture and money. It gives you a rough idea, but not the full picture. And clearly, not all ratings are created equal. If you liked today's video, please consider subscribing. I'm going to try to post a video every few weeks. Have a great day.